My wife walked out on me with our kids, saying, "I don't want to waste my youth." 9 years later, she came back to be their mom again, but my kids already picked their mom, and it isn't her. I thought the hardest part was watching my ex walk out on our family 9 years ago. I was wrong. Nothing prepared me for the call that came after she tried to force her way back into our lives. Nobody really tells you how abandonment works. It's not a sudden, dramatic explosion. It's this slow, insidious burn you don't even recognize until you're completely underwater, gasping for air. My ex-wife, Chloe, left us 9 years ago. Our son, Lucas, was 6, and our daughter, Maya, was just 4. And she didn't leave because of anything typical, no abuse, no infidelity. She left because, as she put it, her yoga friends convinced her she was wasting her youth being tied down. I know how that sounds, like I'm bitter or exaggerating, but those were her exact words the night she told me she was leaving. Before that, I thought we had a normal marriage. You know, the kind where you're both tired, stressed, but still trying. I worked long hours as an automotive technician, and she was a dental hygienist with a part-time schedule that let her be home for the kids. We weren't rich, but we were stable. Family dinners most nights, park on weekends. Sure, we bickered about money or whose turn it was for bath time, but I just figured that was life with young kids. Things started to shift about a year before she left. Chloe joined a yoga studio in the city center and quickly became inseparable from a woman named Brittany. Brittany was one of those people constantly talking about living authentically and finding her true self. She'd done the whole van life thing for 2 years, always posting sunset photos with captions about freedom and breaking chains. At first, I was genuinely happy Chloe had a hobby, friends outside our routine. I even encouraged her to go to weekend retreats and meditation workshops, thinking she deserved something just for her. But those retreats turned into girls' trips to the Lake District. The meditation workshops became excuses to stay out until midnight on weeknights. Suddenly, Chloe spent more time scrolling through Brittany's Instagram than she did talking to our own children. I started noticing she'd tense up whenever Lucas asked for homework help or Maya wanted a bedtime story. Like their needs were an unbearable weight she couldn't wait to escape. I tried talking to her, maybe 3 or 4 times, asking if she was okay, if we needed more date nights. But she'd just sigh and say I wouldn't understand because I wasn't the one who gave up my body and my dreams for kids. That stung. We'd planned this life together, or so I thought. The final straw hit during what was supposed to be a family beach vacation that July. We'd rented a little cottage right on the shore in Florida, and I was excited. The kids had been talking about sandcastles for months. The first 2 days were great, flying a kite, collecting shells. Maya even laughed so hard when a wave knocked her over that she couldn't stop giggling. But on the third night, after the kids were asleep, Chloe sat me down on the porch. She said she felt like she was disappearing, playing a role, screaming inside, and that Brittany had helped her realize she didn't have to live like this anymore. I asked what she meant, and she just looked at me with these empty eyes and said, "I'm leaving, Daniel. I can't be their mother right now. I need to find out who I am without all of this." My hands started shaking. This wasn't about marriage counseling or a temporary break. This was her telling me she was abandoning our children. I begged her to think about Lucas and Maya, how they'd blame themselves, carry that trauma. But she just kept saying they'd understand when they were older, that she'd come back when she was ready, that it was temporary. The next morning, she sat the kids down and tried to explain, gently, that Mommy needed a long trip. Lucas immediately asked, "Did I do something wrong?" Tears were already streaming down his face. Maya didn't understand at all. She just wrapped her tiny arms around Chloe's leg, sobbing, begging her not to leave. Chloe cried too, but still packed her bags that afternoon. I held Maya, who was shaking so hard I thought she might throw up. Lucas locked himself in the bathroom for 2 hours. Chloe promised calls, visits, said she loved them. But even as she said it, I saw in her eyes she'd already checked out. She drove off towards Florida, where Brittany had moved, leaving me in that beach cottage parking lot with 2 traumatized kids who kept asking when Mommy was coming back. Those first few weeks were hell. Maya stopped eating properly. Lucas started having nightmares, waking up screaming for his mom. I had no idea what to tell them because I didn't understand it myself. Chloe did call a few times initially, usually late at night, clearly drunk, rambling about how free she felt, how she knew she'd made the right choice, but that she missed them. Those calls destroyed the kids every single time. She'd make promises about birthdays or Christmas, and then we'd hear nothing for months. After about 6 months of this, I realized the calls were doing more harm than good. I changed our number and told the kids mommy was on her journey, and we needed to give her space. I didn't block her email, figuring she should have some way to reach us for emergencies. But the emails were sporadic, always about her, never truly asking about the kids' lives. I filed for divorce about 8 months after she left, citing abandonment. She didn't even respond to the papers or show up to court. Looking back, that was the moment I became a single father in every sense of the word. 3 years after Chloe left, I met Rachel at a parent-teacher conference for Maya's second-grade class. I'm not going to lie and say it was love at first sight. It was me, 20 minutes late, covered in grease from a brake job, having forgotten to change my shirt. Rachel was Maya's teacher. She'd asked to meet because Maya was having some behavioral issues, nothing major, but withdrawing during group activities, refusing to participate in things involving mothers, like the Mother's Day card project. I sat there in that tiny classroom chair, feeling like the world's biggest failure, while Rachel, in this incredibly calm voice, explained Maya was struggling with maternal figures and needed consistency. Instead of judging me, she asked what she could do to help. That conversation turned into occasional check-ins about Maya's progress, which turned into Rachel offering to tutor Maya in reading twice a week. Somewhere in there, I realized I was looking forward to those brief conversations more than I wanted to admit. Rachel never pushed for anything more than friendship. She never made the kids uncomfortable or tried to replace their mother. She was just present, in this quiet, steady way my life had been missing. We started dating officially about 6 months after that first conference, but kept it low-key. We didn't introduce her as my girlfriend to the kids for another 4 months because I needed to be absolutely sure this was real, stable. The first time Rachel came over for dinner, Lucas was 9 and suspicious of every woman who got close. He barely spoke, watching her like she might disappear. Maya was 7, cautiously excited but also terrified. I could see her warm up, then pull back, as if remembering what happened last time she trusted a mom figure. Rachel handled it perfectly. She never tried too hard or made grand gestures. She just showed up consistently, week after week, proving through actions that she wasn't going anywhere. She came to Lucas's basketball games, helped Maya with her science fair project, and learned to make the kids' favorite brand of mac and cheese. Slowly, over a year, they started to trust her. Meanwhile, Chloe had completely vanished from our lives. No emails for almost 2 years, no child support payments, ever. I tried reaching out through her sister for legal stuff, but she'd apparently moved 3 times and changed her number twice. My lawyer told me that given the abandonment and complete lack of contact, we had grounds for termination of parental rights if we wanted. But I wasn't sure if that was the right move until Rachel and I started talking seriously about marriage. We got engaged when Lucas was 11 and Maya was 9. I sat them down and explained Rachel wanted to adopt them, to be their legal mom. Lucas's response was immediate, she's already more of a mom than Chloe ever was. Maya just climbed into Rachel's lap and stayed there for an hour. The adoption process took almost a year because we had to prove we'd made reasonable efforts to contact Chloe and give her a chance to contest it. My lawyer tracked her down in Washington, living in some intentional community, and served her the papers. She never responded, never showed up to any hearings, didn't contest anything. She just let her parental rights be terminated without a single fight. The day the adoption was finalized was one of the best days of my life. We had a small celebration at home with cake and the kids' favorite pizza. That night, Maya called Rachel mom for the first time, without prompting. Lucas had started doing it months earlier, but Maya had held back, like she was afraid of betraying Chloe. Hearing her say it felt like watching her finally let go of that last bit of trauma. Rachel cried happy tears, and I realized my kids finally had the stable, loving home they deserved. We married 3 months later in a small backyard ceremony with just close family and the kids as our wedding party. Life was genuinely good for the next few years. Lucas made varsity basketball as a freshman. Maya discovered theater and got the lead in her middle school musical. Rachel was there for all of it, in ways Chloe never had been, even when she lived with us. Then, 9 years after Chloe walked out of that Florida beach cottage, she showed up at our front door on a random October afternoon. She looked older, tired, desperate. I opened the door expecting a delivery and instead found my ex-wife, tears in her eyes, saying she'd made the biggest mistake of her life and wanted to be part of the kids' lives again. My first instinct was to slam the door. But she started talking fast, about being in therapy for 2 years, realizing she'd been running from herself, thinking about Lucas and Maya every day, couldn't live with the guilt. She knew she didn't deserve forgiveness, but wanted a chance to explain, to slowly build some kind of relationship. I told her she couldn't just show up after 9 years and expect to walk back into their lives like nothing happened, that they had a mom now who'd actually been there for them. But Chloe kept insisting she was still their biological mother, that it mattered. Against my better judgment, and after talking with Rachel, who was surprisingly open to supervised contact, I agreed to let Chloe meet with the kids once, in our living room, with us present. Lucas was 15 then, Maya 13. When I told them their birth mother wanted to see them, Lucas's face went completely blank, and he flat out refused. Maya was more conflicted. I could see her struggling between curiosity and fear, but she ultimately agreed to one meeting, just to hear what Chloe had to say. The meeting was a disaster from the moment Chloe walked in. She tried to hug Maya, who immediately stepped back behind Rachel. She attempted small talk with Lucas, who sat on the couch with his arms crossed, wouldn't even look at her. Chloe launched into this prepared speech about her journey, her healing, how she understood now she'd been selfish. But everything she said was still centered on her own feelings and growth, rather than acknowledging the damage she'd caused. Maya sat there quietly crying while Chloe talked. Finally, Lucas cut her off. "You don't get to do this," he said. "You don't get to show up and act like you care now. We have a mom, and you're not her." Chloe's face crumpled. She tried to argue she'd always be their real mother, that biology mattered, that she'd been sick and needed help. Rachel spoke up then, in her teacher voice, calm but firm. She said the kids didn't owe Chloe anything, and this meeting was over if they wanted it to be. Maya nodded and ran upstairs. Lucas followed without another word, leaving Rachel and me to deal with Chloe, who was now sobbing, saying we'd turned her children against her. I told her she'd done that all by herself 9 years ago, and she needed to leave. But Chloe wasn't done. She said she'd been talking to a lawyer, that she had rights as their biological mother, even if she'd been absent. Before she left, Chloe wrote her phone number on a piece of paper and pressed it into my hand, saying the kids should be able to reach her if they wanted to. I took it, though every part of me wanted to throw it away. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end quietly. Chloe's threat about lawyers turned out to be mostly empty. No attorney in their right mind would take a case where a mother voluntarily abandoned her kids for 9 years and had her rights legally terminated without contest. But that didn't stop her from trying to force her way back into their lives through other means. She started calling my phone constantly, leaving long voicemails about how she deserved a second chance, how the kids needed to know their real mother. When I blocked her number, she somehow got Rachel's cell and started the same routine there. Rachel was patient at first, compassionate, understanding that mental illness and trauma were real. But after the 5th voicemail in one day, with Chloe crying, "I can't heal until they forgive me. Don't you understand? This is destroying my mental health." Rachel blocked her too. The thing that made me reconsider my hard line against any contact was Maya. About 2 weeks after that disastrous meeting, she came to me one night and said she thought maybe she should try talking to Chloe one more time. I asked her why, and she said she'd been having dreams about her birth mother and felt guilty that maybe she'd been too harsh. I recognized that guilt. I'd seen it in her for years, this feeling that somehow she was responsible for Chloe leaving. I talked to Rachel, and we agreed Maya could have supervised phone contact with Chloe, if that's what she really wanted. Lucas wanted absolutely nothing to do with it, and we respected that boundary. The phone calls started, once a week, in the evenings. Always on speaker in our kitchen, with me or Rachel present. At first, they were awkward but relatively harmless, with Chloe asking about school and Maya giving short answers. But gradually, Chloe started pushing boundaries. She'd make comments about wishing she could take Maya shopping for clothes or help her pick out a dress for the school dance, inserting herself into milestones she had no right to anymore. Maya would get off these calls looking drained and anxious. I started noticing she was biting her nails again, a stress habit she'd broken years ago. After about 2 months of weekly calls, Chloe asked if she could meet Maya in person for coffee, just the two of them. Maya actually seemed open to the idea, until Lucas overheard us discussing it and absolutely lost it. He said we were idiots if we trusted Chloe alone with Maya after everything she'd done, that Maya was just feeling guilty and pressured, but didn't actually want a relationship with someone who'd abandoned her. That fight ended with Lucas slamming his bedroom door and not speaking to any of us for 2 days. It made me realize how much this situation was affecting our entire family dynamic. I told Chloe, through email, that in-person meetings weren't happening yet, and we needed to slow down. But she responded with this long message about how I was being controlling, keeping her from her daughter, and how she'd done the work in therapy and deserved to be trusted. Then, about a week later, I got a call from Maya's school counselor. There had been an incident that afternoon. A woman claiming to be Maya's biological mother had shown up during dismissal time and tried to approach her in the parking lot. School security had intervened because Chloe wasn't on the approved pickup list. Maya had started crying and called Rachel, who arrived within 10 minutes to take her home. I left work immediately. When I got home, Maya was in her room with the door locked, and Rachel told me Maya was terrified and kept saying she didn't feel safe. Chloe had apparently told the security guard she had every right to see her daughter and called Rachel an imposter, making a scene in front of Maya's classmates and teachers. I was furious in a way I hadn't been even when she first left. Abandoning your kids is one thing, but coming back and traumatizing them all over again is something else entirely. I called my lawyer that same day and started the process for a restraining order, documenting every voicemail, email, and now this school incident. Chloe's response to being served was a series of increasingly unhinged emails, accusing me of parental alienation and threatening to go to the media with her story about how I'd stolen her children. My lawyer assured me her threats were baseless and the restraining order would hold up easily, given the pattern of harassment and the school incident. But it didn't make me feel any better because I could see what this was doing to Maya, who blamed herself for trying to give Chloe a chance. Lucas's response was to become fiercely protective of his sister. He started walking her to all her classes and waiting outside when she had rehearsal. The first time I saw him do it, I realized he'd been carrying the weight of protecting her since he was 6 years old. The restraining order was granted. I thought that would be the end of it, that Chloe would finally back off and maybe get the help she actually needed. But 2 weeks later, Maya came to me. She said she wanted to call Chloe one last time to get closure. She'd been talking to her school counselor about it and felt like she needed to tell Chloe directly how her actions had affected her, and that she couldn't move forward without saying her piece. Rachel and I were hesitant, but Maya was 13, mature enough to articulate what she needed. My lawyer confirmed the restraining order prevented Chloe from contacting us, but didn't prohibit supervised contact if we initiated it. So, we agreed to supervise one final call, with the understanding it would be the absolute last contact. Maya dialed the number Chloe had given us, on speaker, with all 3 of us in the room. When Chloe answered, you could hear the desperation in her voice. Maya, baby, I'm so sorry about the school. I just wanted to see you. Maya took a deep breath and said, in this steady voice, that she'd spent years wondering what was wrong with her that made her mom leave. And that she'd finally realized nothing was wrong with her, that Chloe had made a choice. She told Chloe that Rachel was her real mom now, the one who'd been there for every hard moment and every achievement, and that she didn't want any more contact because it hurt too much. Chloe started crying, trying to interrupt, but Maya kept going, saying she hoped Chloe would get better, but that she couldn't be the one to fix her. When Maya hung up, she collapsed into Rachel's arms and sobbed. But it was a different kind of crying than before, like something had been released. We all thought that was truly the end of it. Until 3 days later. I got a call from a hospital in Seattle saying Chloe had been admitted after she had harmed herself, and had listed me as her emergency contact. The nurse said Chloe was stable but asking to speak with me. I felt this wave of guilt and anger and exhaustion all at once, because even now, Chloe was making her pain everyone else's problem. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't take her calls. Instead, I reached out to Chloe's sister, who I'd stayed in touch with over the years, and explained the situation. She hadn't spoken to Chloe in years either, but agreed to go be with her and help coordinate whatever care she needed. My therapist, who I'd started seeing about 2 months after Chloe reappeared, told me that I couldn't save Chloe, and that protecting my children had to come first. Logically, I knew that was true, but emotionally, I still felt like somehow I'd failed. The last update I got was from Chloe's sister, saying Chloe had been moved to a psychiatric facility for intensive treatment, and that she'd make sure Chloe got the help she needed without involving us anymore. Lucas and Maya both know what happened, because I've always believed in age-appropriate honesty. Maya cried, but also said she didn't want to feel responsible for Chloe's choices anymore. It's been 4 months since all of that went down, and our life has slowly returned to normal. Maya is back to her happy self and just got cast in another show. Lucas is looking at colleges with basketball programs. Sometimes I wonder if I handled everything wrong, if there was some way I could have helped Chloe reconnect without it turning into chaos. But then I watch Rachel helping Maya run lines for her play, or cheering at Lucas's games. And I know I made the right choice. My kids are happy and healthy, and they have a mother who chose them every single day. At the end of the day, that's what matters. I don't know if you can ever truly escape the consequences of your choices, but I do know that my children shouldn't have to pay for Chloe's mistakes twice, and they won't. Not as long as I'm here to protect them. What would you have done?